Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Became a Cyber Demon Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
There were craters, cracks, and small wisps of flame all over a valley near a strong waterfall. The site of a battle that seems supernatural to you and me. A kid with dark hair and blue shorts and a white shirt looked down at a blonde boy with 3 whisker marks on each cheek who was not awake. The boy with the blonde hair wore an orange jumpsuit with blue shoulder pads. There were terrible wounds and injuries on both of them. The blonde had been punctured in the upper left part of his chest. It was a miracle that the damage hadn't been worse to his heart. Because of the wound on his shoulder, one of the dark-haired boy's arms was pretty much useless until he could get medical help. It rained, and he looked down at the blonde for a long time. He also looked at his fine hand. It'd be really simple. He could kill him right then and get the strength he needed to fight the man he wanted to destroy, but that wouldn't make him better than that man. "I don't need to kill you to get stronger," he said as he turned to walk away. "Don't make me follow in his steps." He turned over his shoulder to say one last thing to his opponent as he walked away. "Don't come after me, Naruto. You and I have paths that are completely different. I'm an Avenger." After that, he left the area and didn't look back over his shoulder again. By the time he got out of reach, he hadn't noticed that the ground he had left his opponent on had become slippery and muddy. He also hadn't noticed the blonde boy slide into the nearby river and start to be carried away by the current. The only signs that he had been there were the groove in the mud that showed where he had gone and the blue headband with a metal plate on it that had a leaf scratched through it. Some time went by, and one man was left alone in the middle of what used to be a battlefield. He looked down at the headband by the river. He wore a headband that was the same as the one on the ground over one eye, and the other eye looked down solemnly. He sighed through his face mask as he got on his knees and grabbed the headband tightly. "Pakun, can you smell anything?" He looked up at the man and asked, "You don't think Naruto?" The small pug next to him sniffed the air and then shook its head. "I can't smell either one, Kakashi. Not Naruto or Sasuke. Sasuke's trail goes on a little further before dying off, and Naruto's ends right here." While looking down the river, Kakashi stood back up and said, "We have to keep looking. Naruto would never die that easily. We'll find him." Naruto's memories of the battle he had just fought slowly came back to him. "Sasuke." He murmured among his blue eyes. He knew he was looking up at the sky and felt like he was floating in water. But the sky was hazy, so he couldn't see the sky itself. When he turned around, he saw that the shallow river he was floating in had trees growing up along the sides. The trees were on fire. Naruto jumped to his feet and splashed water all over the place when he saw what he saw. He thought he saw dead fish floating toward him when he looked closely at the water, but when he reached out to touch one, he heard a strange voice say, "Sad, it's so sad." Naruto snapped his head forward all of a sudden and saw a man floating in the air. His silver hair was pulled back and he looked like he was going bald. He looked to be in his 50s. He had a small pair of glasses on and looked like he was smiling at Naruto, which scared him a lot. His sweater had a turtleneck and black gloves on his hands. His boots and pants had a pattern of dark blue, gray, and black that looked like it was camouflage. Not only did he have packs on, like one on a belt around his waist, but he also had a strange tool or weapon strapped to the upper left part of his chest. "Who are you?" Naruto asked. "Where is Sasuke? Where am I?" Such an unfortunate anomaly. To take a child as young as you, as important as you were meant to be, and bring you to my domain," the man said, trailing off in a mysterious way before bowing to Naruto and saying in a sad voice, "My true name doesn't matter to you, boy. You may call me the Sorrow for your own identification purposes." Naruto was really scared of the strange man and asked, "What kind of name is that?" He had to leave, but he wasn't sure where he was. "Tell me where I am. I can't afford to be lost right now. I need to find Sasuke and finish my fight with him," he yelled as he sailed through the burning trees toward safety. The Sorrow said, "You are more lost than you realize, and your fight with your opponent has indeed ended. You are no longer among the living, my child." Even though Naruto wasn't very smart, he knew that he was being told that he was dead. "I'm dead?" he asked, shocked. "There's no way. Sasuke." Assuming Naruto would say something like, "It was fate alone who killed you. It was an accident," the Sorrow told him, "did not kill you." There was nothing else to say. Naruto was dumbfounded and looked around to see if any of this was fake. As he took a step toward the Sorrow, he heard water splashing and looked down. Now was his chance to get a better look at the dead fish in the water. He reached out to grab one, but his hand went right through it like it wasn't there. Naruto looked at his hand and then at the few fish in the river that looked a lot like the one he was trying to grab. That was a ghost?" he asked hesitantly. "So, I really am dead," he said solemnly. He looked up at the Sorrow slowly before asking again, "Are you the Shinigami?" As he swam in front of Naruto, the Sorrow smiled and shook his head. "I cannot say that I am. I am a part of the dearly departed, much like you. Although I am a medium between the living and the dead," he said, pointing to the river they were on. "This river is meant to show you all of the sins of battle that you have committed." The boy gasped in fear as he spoke. "I would have said that this experience was meant to force you to face those whose lives you have ended as a soldier, but you are an exception in the world of conflict and strife. You have not taken any human lives." Naruto quickly shook his head and said, "I have never killed anyone in battle before." As the Sorrow looked over Naruto with a critical eye, he said, "Yet you don't seem disgusted or horrified by the idea." This caused a long silence. Naruto became scared and didn't know what was going on or what was waiting for him. "Since I became a ninja, I've met people who made it seem like killing was the only thing we were good for. That as a shinobi I was supposed to be a killing machine. I don't think I have to do that. There's a time for killing. And I haven't found a good enough reason to kill yet. At least that's what I think," Naruto explained as best he could, showing a strange amount of respect for this man. It was pretty clear that this man was telling him that he was dead. What would happen to him? So what's going to happen to me? Naruto was confused when the Sorrow looked at him again and said, "That is up to you. Do you want this to be the end?" Naruto quickly shook his head and opened his mouth to yell, "I cannot send you back to you and yours. Just know that before you make your decision." Naruto thought about what the Sorrow had said. "I can't go home. I can't go back to Konoha." He snapped his lips shut. "I promised all of my friends that I would be Hokage, but I can't keep my word." The Sorrow didn't have to say anything to Naruto that could have changed his mind. He could make his own choice. End of the day, all he could do was help him with whatever he chose. There was something unique about this kid. As Naruto thought, his face scrunched up in determination. "I can't just give up and die now. Even if I can't go back home, I can't quit," he said with conviction. "I'll miss all of my friends that I made, but if I had the choice between dying and going to get another chance somewhere else, they would want me to do that. Go ahead and do whatever you want to do to bring me back to life, creepy ghost man." As the Sorrow floated closer to Naruto, he smiled and said, "Just like in your previous life, you will face a lot of hardship. But also, just like in your previous life, you have the will that can change the world. In the end, it is up to you. And remember one thing, I'll be watching you." The Sorrow then put one hand on Naruto's shoulder, and Naruto felt his heart stop beating as everything went black again. The interior Alaskan wilderness, 1999, on a dirt road, a man with longer blonde hair that was pulled back and wore sunglasses was driving a pickup truck. Because he didn't want to have to drive himself all the way to Fairbanks and back in the hellish snow that the interior of Alaska could offer, Kazuhira Miller could honestly say that he was glad it was summer in Alaska right now. Being a survival master who had worked with the Green Berets, the US Marines, the SAS, and the high-tech elite Black Ops unit Foxhound, he was used to harsh conditions, but now that he was retired, he didn't want to go through the worst that Alaska had to offer. It had been 6 months since he quit his job, choosing to do so after helping Foxhound agent Solid Snake with his mission to get into Zanzibar land from afar. It's interesting that Snake is said to have retired after that mission as well, but to a different part of Alaska that wasn't as dangerous as the place Miller chose to live. While he was thinking about this, he pulled up to his big 3-story house, which was not too far from a nearby stream. He got out of his truck and stretched for a moment after the long drive. The man was 5 feet 8 inches tall and had a slim but muscular build. He wore a dark green tank top, darker green pants, and boots. As he walked up the front porch to his house and opened the door, he yelled, "Catherine, I'm home," across the whole house. A yelling, "Dad," came from upstairs, and it was his daughter. "Come here, I need you to see something." Behind his glasses, his eyes got bigger. Since they moved out, he hadn't heard his daughter that excited about anything. There was never any real action there, which is the whole reason he moved them out of Los Angeles after his divorce. To his surprise, she wasn't in her room on the second floor. Instead, she was in the loft area on the third floor. When he got to the loft that looked like a home, he saw his little daughter sitting next to a figure that looked like it was asleep on the couch next to her, wrapped in blankets. He slowly walked over to his daughter and put himself between her and the boy on the couch. "What happened? Who is this boy?" he asked quickly. Katie said, "I don't know." She was a little girl wearing black t-shirt under a white long-sleeved shirt. She was blonde like her father, but her hair was pulled back into a ponytail so that a few curly bangs framed her face. "I found him yesterday," she said. Miller was shocked when he heard, "You found him? In the middle of the Alaskan wilderness? How do you find someone you don't know?" Catherine shrugged and looked at the boy on her couch. "Yesterday, while I was feeding our huskies while you were gone for a few days, I saw something orange by the stream. It was him wearing an orange tracksuit and bandana. He looked terrible, Dad," she said with a worried face. "I thought he was dead until I checked his pulse and saw that he was still alive, so I brought him here in hopes that it would help until you got here." She looked up at him with bright green eyes and asked, "You can help him, can't you?" Miller made a face and rubbed his blue eyes together under his sunglasses. "Why did this kid come all the way out here? How did she find him? I guess I should ask how he got into the stream." He just wanted the kid to wake up so he could ask those questions. But besides helping, what was he going to do? She told him, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do, but I'm not a doctor and town is far away, sweetheart." Catherine, eager to say something else about the mysterious boy, said, "That's the thing. He had a bunch of nasty wounds when I found him, but when I got up this morning, they weren't nearly as bad. And all the cuts and other things I found on his face were gone except for what I saw on his cheeks." Miller then saw that Catherine had covered his cheeks with bandages. He took them off to see what they were covering, and he had to hold back a laugh. During birth, he was born with straight lines on his face. His 10-year-old daughter must have thought that the kid's injuries were all caused by them. He then looked at the boy's face and knew he didn't want to get down on his knees to look more closely. The boy's hair was blonde and his skin was pretty tan. He wasn't born in Alaska, that was for sure. It's funny that his daughter found a strange blonde kid. He looked like he was from the United States, which made him wonder again where the hell the kid was from. At first, Miller looked at his daughter and ran his hand through his hair. "Well, he's breathing fine. He doesn't seem to be in pain. And I can't find anything wrong with him as he is. We'll just have to wait for him to wake up to see if we can help him anymore," he said. "Get out of here. Sitting here won't help him wake up any faster. We'll know when he comes to." Kate got up and walked out of the loft to go back to her room. She took one last look at the blonde boy she had found by her house. But the last 2 days had been more fun than any day before they moved out there. It was true that she couldn't do anything else to help the boy. Naruto woke up feeling strangely at ease, but not sure what was going on around him. What was going on in this strange room? He looked around, confused. But his muscles didn't want him to get up, because they locked up when he tried to sit up. A bitter laugh came out of his throat as he thought about everything that had happened to him. "Shinyu koto wa hontou ni kyuen, dying really stinks," he whispered to himself. In an effort to put together the last few events, he thought back to the last fight he had with Sasuke and everything that happened after it, or what he thought happened after it. Did all of those things really happen? Was the sorrow really there? Where the hell was he now? It was making his head hurt, so he said, "Itai. Atama ga watashi o kuroshite. Ouch. My head is killing me." He looked at the figure of a blond man walking up the stairs toward him and said, "You're awake." He had sunglasses on, but his face showed that he was suspicious. "Now I've got some questions for you, and I hope you're in good enough shape to answer them," the man said. Still lying on his back on the couch covered in blankets, Naruto gave him a confused look and said, Watashi wa no ojisan o idiru no wakaranai. O no watashi no ibasho shite ka. I don't know what you're saying, sir. Do you know where I am?" Naruto had never heard anyone talk like that before. He was definitely not in the elemental nations anymore, that much was certain. The way Naruto spoke made Miller raise an eyebrow because it wasn't English. "It sounds like the kid is speaking Japanese," he said. The boy didn't look at all Japanese, but he spoke Japanese. He even looked like him when he was a child, what with the blonde hair and wide blue eyes. Nani no Araska de Okanate Nipponjen no Kodamadasu ka. What is a Japanese child doing in Alaska? He asked in his native language. He wasn't going to ask if the child was from Japan. He also didn't look like he was from Japan, but he was. Japan? Yukon? For all the information Naruto got from the question, he might as well have kept talking English. Nani? Watashi wa anata ga nani oi. Sutaru no kamo wakaranai. What? I have no idea what you're talking about. Naruto replied, looking around in a strange way to take it all in. Since he was pretty comfortable, it was clear that he wasn't in any immediate danger. Watashi wa doko kan. Anata wa watashi o oshi et kudasai. Now could you tell me where I am? As he crossed his arms over his chest and gave him a straight look, Miller said, America Gashukoku, the United States of America. Miller then saw Naruto giving him a look like he was blinded by a car headlight. What did this kid know? Miller said, Anata wa nani o shita masu ka, anata no name, nani ka koto ga tasuke ni narudaro na. Do you know anything? What's your name? Anything like that would help. He pointed at himself. Watashi wa hajimemasu. Watashi no name wa Miller Kazuhira. I'll start. My name is Kazuhira Miller. Naruto smiled and jerked a thumb at himself as he heard the man introduce himself. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said. He then began to think of what to say to the man. He chose not to go to his hometown because he knew he wasn't there anymore. That person would think he was crazy if he told them where he was from. Could he tell him he was a ninja? Most likely not. It was likely that this world didn't even have them, and Naruto didn't think it was smart to explain. Watashi wa Jusanda, I'm 13 years old. He finally figured out what he could say. To Watashi wa Heishida, and I'm a soldier, he said, thinking about what to call his job until he remembered what the Saro called him. Heisha? Anata wa Yoroshidesu ka, a soldier? Are you sure? Miller asked. At first, he thought he had said something wrong when he saw the shock on Miller's face. A child soldier, but he doesn't look like one, Naruto told him. Why would he be here? Ta ni nani ka oshita masu ka. Do you know anything else? He asked himself before asking again. Naruto frowned and shook his head. The boy must have forgotten something. How did he know what to do? He was only 13 years old. Based on the white t-shirt he was wearing, the boy's bones looked pretty dense. He was pretty big. So what's going to happen? Naruto asked with some worry. He knew for sure that he didn't have what it took to do well out there after just this conversation. He had no idea where he was or how to get around. His language was spoken only in a place that was probably very far away. This place is called Japan. Miller looked at him and let out a sigh, switching over to English so that Naruto couldn't understand him as he mused to himself. I can't just let this kid leave you. Hell, I can't even drop him off in town and wish him luck. He knows his own name, how to speak Japanese, and nothing else. And he's a soldier to boot. At worst he'll just wind up getting himself killed. Noting Naruto staring at him without blinking, he addressed him again. Sor wa ta de gaki o mitsumete bukinida. It's creepy to stare at others, brat. Naruto blinked once in response. Anata ga hatarakamasu ka. Can you work? He asked the younger blonde boy, getting a firm nod. Anata ga hitsuya na manabu made anata gataga watashi to isho ni yo. Then you'll stay with me until you learn what you need. When Naruto heard that, his face lit up, and he quickly began to thank the man with a smile. And Miller still couldn't figure out how this kid could be a soldier for the 100th time since the kid woke up. After 2 days, Catherine Miller, Miller's daughter, was a little confused when she heard that Naruto was going to stay with them for a while. But a short explanation that he wasn't from their country or even continent and didn't seem to know anything helped him understand. Kate, who was 10 years old, could tell that Naruto was friendly even though they didn't speak the same language. Miller hadn't told her yet that Naruto was a child soldier, in part because he didn't really believe it. Putting Naruto to work for a whole day changed his mind, though. No matter how hard the task would have been for a normal child his age, the kid sped through it like it was nothing. He didn't know if the kid was just very hardworking or what. Cutting down trees for firewood, carrying it back to the house, feeding the huskies, and so on. He did everything Miller told him to. It turned into a test over time to see what it would take for him to back out or get tired, but he never did. He just finished his job and, sometimes smiling, went straight to Miller to do whatever he told him to do next. Miller and Naruto walked back to the house as the sun went down, turning the sky orange to mark the end of the day. The boy was still as happy as ever. One of the first things they taught the kid in his spare time was English, which he didn't speak at all. But he could tell that the training had helped him. During the walk through the woods, Naruto was alert and ready. His fingers would sometimes move to parts of his body that didn't have weapons on them. Even though he was happy, it was clear that he didn't trust his surroundings and was ready to act at any time if he felt threatened. Miller began to wonder how strong the boy really was in case there was a real threat. It was important to find out because if he had the skills, he shouldn't hide them or waste them. He worked with the man who was thought to be the best soldier in the world during intense combat and helped train elite soldiers from all over the world. Miller was a good soldier in his time. If there was anyone who could tell what Naruto was really capable of, it was him. When they got to the front of the big house, Miller stopped and looked down at the boy, who was wearing an olive pair of cargo pants and a simple green long-sleeved shirt that said, Marines, on the front. Anata wa heisha tanobeta. Naruto. Wa dono yu ni anata ni nani ga dekiru ka o masete o gokiba dezu ka? You said you were a soldier. Naruto, how would you like to show me what you're made of? Naruto stopped in his tracks and asked Miller, Hantu desu ka? Anata wa watashi tatatakau ka? Really? You want to fight me? Miller cracked his knuckles as Naruto stretched out and said, Anata no hijo ni madomo yoi degeki o yokos. Watashi wa toki ni teishi suru koto o oshiet agemasho. Give me your best shot. I'll tell you when to stop. Miller saw that Naruto was ready to fight, so he yelled, Hajime, begin. When Naruto heard Miller say, start, he didn't waste any time and went for the attack right away. Miller grunted and jumped to defend himself right away. He was shocked by Naruto's speed and said, I know grown men don't even move that fast. He dodged a wild right hand that was aimed at his head and then decided to see how badly the boy was hurt. He hit the older man with a tight jab and hook that took advantage of his height and reach. The two punches hit Naruto right in the face. He let out a growl to show that he knew he was hurt, then he went right back in for more. Miller was quick, but Naruto was much faster. Gray Fox was way faster. He thought as he stayed away from Miller as Naruto threw everything he had at him. He kicked from all directions, low, high, and even while jumping, but all of his attacks came from straight ahead, and Snake was faster too. He's still not a slouch. But he pretty much hits me with whatever he thinks will work. That's not good. Who is this old man? He thought this as he pushed his attack forward and took another blow that hit him in the lip but didn't stop him. It's like he's playing with me, Miller said. Miller wasn't trying to hurt or knock him out. He looks like he's barely avoiding. When Miller finally had enough, he gave Naruto a deep, driving kick in the stomach that knocked him out. Naruto quickly lost all of his air. He coughed out a few words, then got back up, took a defensive stance, and chose to have Miller attack him. Error. Before Miller answered Naruto's silent call to fight, he said, Pa su yori okana ito osu uni shite kudasai. Don't let a bigger opponent press the pace. His first jab was meant to probe, but Naruto dodged it so he could round kick him in the ribs. Naruto tried to punch back, but he couldn't because there wasn't enough space. To make a punch really hurt, Miller was too close to him, but Miller still had some tricks up his sleeve. Miller grabbed Naruto's punching wrist and wrapped his free arm around Naruto's neck from the front. With a quick pop of his hips, Miller threw Naruto hard to the ground over his body. Ika anata no madomo yoi ka? Watashi wa subi no uchi ni iku koto o katata. Miller moved away and crossed his arms. Is that your best? I told you to go all out. The older soldier teased Naruto to make him angry. Naruto growled again. This time he was mad. From the talks they had been having, he knew Miller was a soldier and one of the best before he retired. But losing a fight without getting a good shot in hurt Naruto's pride. He thought he was better than that. He still hadn't used them, so he said, You want it? You've got it? Anata wa sor o shite desu ka? Datbeo. Miller asked with a chuckle, what was that, gibberish? He spoke English to avoid making Naruto even more angry. Instead of charging at him again, This time with even more force, as Miller had thought. Naruto raised his hands and made a T shape with his index and middle fingers while shouting, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu." Miller's eyes got bigger behind his sunglasses when he saw 4 copies of Naruto appear that were exactly the same as the original. What the hell? Are those real? Miller asked in English, forgetting that Naruto didn't speak English. He was genuinely interested and shocked. This is strange. Watashi is a Uitsu no Gatsu no Bunshin o Sukurimashita. I only made 5 clones. Naruto normally would have had at least 50 clones to work with after putting so much chakra into the jutsu, but he had to make do with what he had for now. After that, he told his clones to attack. He can fight with them? That's really scary, Miller thought. Naruto knew one thing very well, how to fight. He didn't know anything else. 5 Narutos rushed at Miller, forcing him to quickly back away from the wave of blonde kids. That's when he understood why soldiers said child soldiers were some of the scariest enemies they could face on the battlefield. 5 clones tried to hit Miller in every way they could. 2 of them hid behind him and tried to box him in. The only things that kept the clones from trapping him and punishing him were his years of experience and his gut telling him to dive and roll out of the fight. One Naruto yelled, "Jito, hold still," as another used the others as a springboard to fly into the air. As Miller punched the flying clone out of the air, making it burst into smoke, he said, "Teishi Hanashi. Stop talking." He then took advantage of the sudden change in direction and hit 3 Narutos in the face with a roundhouse kick, knocking one of them to the ground and making it smoke. The only Naruto who hadn't been hurt yet was the one who had hit Miller, the one who had talked. He made it count by giving the man a vicious uppercut to the stomach and grinning when he heard the man cough hard. He was very happy for only 30 seconds before Miller put an arm around his neck in a front headlock and started to squeeze. He choked him and lifted him off the ground with brute force. In an instant, Naruto's eyes closed and he stopped moving while Miller held him. The boy passed out, and Miller looked at the other clones, but they were all gone in a puff of smoke. It looks like if you knock out the real one or hurt him badly enough, the others go away, he thought to himself as he looked down at Naruto. Still, that is one scary kid. I wonder what kind of weapons training he has. He coughed and rubbed his stomach. What the fuck does that kid bench? I haven't had grown soldiers hit me that hard before. Still, he thought about Naruto's performance as he picked up the kid and walked away. He's fast, he's strong, and he keeps charging forward like a pit bull, but his technique is bad, and he doesn't use angles. He just charges forward. Those copies of his definitely make up for it, though, he said with a shake of his head. How in God's name did he do that? This is crazy. Instead of answering some questions about Naruto, the fight only made him raise more. Outside, Miller had set up a wooden table where Naruto could wait for him. Miller had told Naruto to wait there for a moment because he wanted to see something. While Naruto was still a little upset about losing, he had other things on his mind. Naruto thought about how his Kage Bunshin hadn't worked the way he thought it would after being left alone in the back of the house. Most of the time, when he used his clones along with his hand-to-hand, they would each work toward their own flow in the fight. Naruto's skills were even more dangerous when he used them on multiple clones, each of whom had their own ideas about how the battle was going and what they could do to win. That didn't happen to Miller. His clones did nothing but follow his lead the whole time. His clones would also talk and insult his enemy to throw them off. Otherwise, the other player wouldn't know which Naruto was real unless they could beat his army of clones first and then pick out the real one. Miller caught the real him while there were still a lot of clones around. Also, his clones were hurt more than he thought they would be. He was used to his clones going away after just one hit. After taking some hard kicks and punches from Miller, these clones were still alive. The first person also felt them. If Naruto's clones were knocked out, he could feel the damage they had taken before they were spelled out. Also, that was new. Though, he had to test something that was most important to him right now. Naruto used the Kage Bunshin seal he was used to and put his fingers up in it. 5 copies of himself appeared again. Damn it, still only 5? This time I gave them even more chakra. Whenever he made clones before, they would look around and act like they were real. Naruto walked up to them and snapped his fingers in front of their faces, but they didn't move or react in any way. Nani ka yeo? Say something. He told his clones, but they didn't answer. One of the clones caught Naruto's eye and he glared at it. What was he going to do when they couldn't talk? He wouldn't need them as much now that he knew they didn't have much free will. It looked like they couldn't even talk. It didn't matter how much damage he took if he was still in pain when the spells ended. One of the clones, the one Naruto was looking at, said, "Orikana Kuso Bunshin." Stupid fucking clones. The original stepped back and looked at the copy. Watashi wa karera ga hanashi o suru konohaha wa aramasu ka? Watashi no kokara de wa? Subarashi. Is this how I make them talk? With my mind? Awesome, the copy said instead of Naruto's mental shout. After that, Naruto used his mind to order more things, testing what he could do while Miller was away. He could ask for a certain clone if he could focus on picking out the right one. Even though he couldn't see the clone, he could still tell it to do something if he knew where it was going. To make sure he understood the main idea, he had them practice being defensive by surrounding and guarding the original, simple things. He gave bad orders, and if he wasn't clear about something, his clones wouldn't know how to fill in the blanks for things that weren't asked for directly. It would be hard to get this down. Before he threw them away, Naruto walked up to one of them and decided to do one last test to make sure what Miller had told him was true. Naruto put his hands on the shoulders of a clone and took a deep breath. Then he jerked his head back and hit the clone in the face with his hands. The clone was hit with blood and knocked to the ground. It only lived for a second before its body vanished in a puff of smoke. When it did, though, Naruto jumped back sharply and grabbed his nose. His head seemed to be swimming from what looked like blunt damage. His nose was fine, but it felt like it was broken. That proved it. He was willing to take the damage his clones got, but not the damage itself. He would only take the pain. After telling the rest of his clones to go away, Naruto looked towards the house to see where Miller was. That's when he saw the man standing there with a big duffel bag under one arm and Catherine standing with him, looking completely amazed. Tanoshin Daru. Having fun? He asked Naruto, who was still rubbing his nose and was now staring at him, which made Miller laugh as he walked over to the table where he had left Naruto. He took things out of the duffel bag after opening it. Naruto was watching him when he felt a tap on the shoulder. When he turned around, he saw a younger blonde girl looking at him strangely. "I'm glad you're all better now, but what was that thing you just did? What were those other yous?" she asked excitedly. When she saw that he didn't understand a word, she got upset and said, "Sorry, you don't speak English." Because Naruto didn't understand what she had said, he just smiled and said sorry in Japanese before he heard Miller call out to him. Catherine was interested to see Miller talk to Naruto in Japanese and point to the things he had put on the table from his bag. Catherine asked her father, "What did you tell Naruto to do?" After he told Naruto what he wanted him to do, she knew enough Japanese to know that he had asked Naruto to do something. Miller stared at the things Naruto had put on the table, not sure what to think. "Well, he said he was a soldier, but I want to know exactly what he can do and what training he's had. I'm just testing to see what kinds of weapons he can use," Miller said. Catherine didn't really believe that Naruto was who he said he was as she watched him look at the things on the table. But her dad was an old pro who knew better, and she was only 10 years old, so why not trust him? Well, what about that body copying thing he did? Because Miller had seen so many things since the 1970s, he couldn't say that what Naruto did was truly amazing. Researchers had been trying out psychokinesis and other strange abilities for years. He had seen and fought some very strange things in his time, but making copies out of thin air was not possible, and they were real, so it wasn't a psychic trick of the mind. He also didn't think Naruto would or could help him figure out what his strange powers were. At the same time, Naruto was looking at the things Miller had put on the table. Some of the tools looked like the thing that the Sorrow had on his chest in a holster when he saw him. But they looked different. Miller had called them guns, and Naruto didn't bother to ask him about it. Based on how Miller had talked about them, they were probably common weapons where Naruto was. He didn't know how they worked, which was a shame. While Naruto was looking at the smaller guns, he saw some long weapons that looked like tubes and had the same purpose. However, he didn't want to touch any of them. He was taking too long. Something had to be done. He saw the swords and other weapons at the end of the table, though. While they didn't look like the kunai in his world, Naruto grabbed the smallest ones he could find because he was poor and had no other choice. They were silver and small, and their shape made it look like they could fly through the air. Each handle was about 4 inches long and had 4 holes carved into it. He picked one up and flipped it over so that the lighter side was facing outward. He was now ready to throw it at a 15-yard away painted target on a tree. Miller raised an eyebrow and asked, "All of those guns?" And he goes right to the heavy throwing knives. He was even more surprised when Naruto started throwing them like he was an expert, hitting the target every time. Even though his hits on the target were different, none of them went outside of the painted bullseye. Instead, most of them went right around the middle circle. Miller had put out some combat knives, but Naruto started throwing them. He felt he had to step in and say, "Subasata ina." "Okay, that's enough with the knives," in Japanese, quickly stopping Naruto before he damaged his good knives by throwing them all at the tree. "Kon, anata wa ju o shiyu suru you ni shite nodisaga. I'd like you to use a gun now." Looking nervously at the weapons, Naruto decided it would be best to tell the truth rather than look stupid. "Watashi wa huhu ga wakaranai. Watashi mo me ni. Ya, o mita koto ga nai. I don't know how. I've never even seen a gun before." Have you never seen a gun? Either he had terrible amnesia or he was the strangest person Miller had ever met. There was no doubt that Naruto had some kind of military training. He never complained or looked uncomfortable when told to work hard. He wasn't scared or out of place in a fight, and he probably could throw scissors just as well as he could custom-made throwing knives. Blood didn't bother him much, but there was something there. After a week, Naruto was able to go to sleep early today because there wasn't nearly as much work to do. He chose to go into the nearby forests and try some things out when he had some free time. The test results made him feel down, which is how he felt right now. He sat on a downed tree and looked at his right hand. He went out there to find out how his kage bunshin worked differently in this world. What else was new if that jutsu worked that way? He quickly learned what was new by going over his most basic skills. He was no longer able to change. He didn't get it. He knew a lot of ninjutsu, so how could he only use some of them? They taught him the next jutsu after Kage Bunshin, which was the next one he tried. One type of jutsu is called summoning jutsu. The power to call on all kinds of animals, including toads, snakes, and more, to fight for you. Another epic fail was this jutsu. There was no action at all. He didn't even throw away any chakra when he tried to use it. He could no longer use one of the skills he had worked hard to learn, but it made him feel a little better to know that he could still use Rasengan, the technique he had used to cut down the tree he was sitting on. He laughed to himself, trying to find the good in what was happening. He was still, at the very least, screwed. Though he didn't speak the language or know where he was, he did know how to use most of the things in Miller's house, which made him thankful that most of the appliances were ones he already knew how to use. But fighting was the only thing he was good at and always had been. In this world, he was also very weak in that area, which became very clear when he saw Miller pick up the guns on the table and use them to show Naruto what they could do. The bullets were moving faster than any kunai he had ever thrown. Miller picked up the longest gun with a scope and called it a PSG-1, calling it a semi-automatic sniper rifle, or something similar. He said it could hit a target from a half-mile away at 868 meters per second. Just the thought of fighting someone with those kinds of weapons made him realize he was in deep water and couldn't get out. Naruto sighed to himself and decided that he had been gone for too long. He got up and walked back to the big house that would be his temporary home until Miller got tired of having to house him. No matter how long they said he could stay, he couldn't. It wasn't right. They didn't owe him anything. Even though he was doing things that would have been D-rank missions back home, that didn't give him the right to stay there forever. Naruto. Miller walked up through the trees like he was looking for him before he could get too far from where he was sitting and thinking. How did he get to him, though? He didn't seem to have tried very hard to do that. Naku was sure he had gone at least a few miles into the forest. Miller was getting cooler and cooler to Naruto every day. Watashi wa anata no tame ni might kita. I've been looking for you. Naruto blinked rapidly, not sure what to think. Had he forgotten to do something today? Could it be that Catherine was looking for him again? When Miller tried to teach Naruto English, she was very helpful. It was good for both of them because she would improve her own Japanese the more she helped him. The girl didn't mind. She liked Naruto and called him weird more than once. She was also very nice. Dono ya ni watashi wa anata o kunren shite to omoamasu. How would you like me to train you? Miller said bluntly. Nothing funny about the look on his face. He knew Naruto was talented by nature. Miller knew enough about fighting in general to get by on his own, but Naruto made him think of too many things about himself. He wasn't sure if it was because Naruto looked a lot like him or because Naruto was Japanese, but something told him that helping the kid was a good idea. Chato kanget might kudasai. Watashi wa anata o motomite kimashita kekyoku sakai sonomono netsuite wa nani mo shiranai. Sor ga umaku akudaro. Think about it for a moment. You can't speak English and you don't know anything about the world after the talks we've been having. It will work out. Miller gave Naruto a serious look, which made him shut up. He was about to eagerly accept, which would solve a lot of the problems he thought he would have for himself. He was told by Miller to use English as much as possible so that he could learn it faster. Naruto said with a smile, yes. He had learned enough English over the last week to give simple answers around the house and even talk a little with Catherine. Most of it happened over the course of the first day after a few hours. Miller gave Naruto a short, sharp nod and stood up. Naruto walked up to Miller's chest and said, "Kon, from now on, whether you're at home or training, you will always call me Master Miller. I expect you to do what I say and work hard. Got it?" Naruto eagerly nodded again, this time without giving it a second thought. If being a soldier was what he was meant to do, and Miller could help him get settled in his new home, why would he say no? Even if he didn't like the idea, he had no choice but to say, "Yes, I'll do it." Naruto wanted to say more about how grateful he was, but he didn't know enough English to do more than say that he understood. 6 months later, in the winter of 1999, Naruto was 13 years old. Catherine put on a white parka and walked out onto the front porch of the house. She saw her dad getting their huskies ready by tying them to the sled he was going to use. Even though it had been snowing for 4 days in a row, her dad still sent Naruto on one of his last-minute dates. Even so, Catherine was sure that her dad only wanted to see how hard it would be to break Naruto. He still hadn't found anything that worked. "Why did you make him walk out in this, Dad? For groceries? Really? You have a sled?" she yelled. As Miller put the last dog in its harness and petted the husky on the head, he laughed and turned to his daughter, Catherine. "What's the big deal, Catherine? I just sent him into town, nothing big." It was snowing hard on the dirt road, and Catherine said, "Town is about 20 miles away. Naruto's probably freezing to death out there. I hate riding my sled to town. I couldn't imagine having to walk it." As Miller walked toward his angry daughter, he shook his head. Naruto and Catherine liked each other a lot after the language barrier was mostly gone thanks to how quickly the boy learned English. She thought he was a lot like her older brother, who could hit a bullseye with any kind of blade 30 yards away and make 5 more of himself on command. Miller casually said, "He's fine." While he loved his daughter very much, she seemed to forget that Naruto wasn't normal, or more accurately, she hadn't quite grasped what was so different about him. He had learned everything he could from Naruto about how to make clones and how to use one of his clones with the powerful blue destruction technique. It was more than enough for Catherine to know what Naruto could do. It's a straight shot all the way through. There's no way he got lost. The time they found out he could stick to the wall during a particularly hard session of unarmed combat training was just one example of the strange things Naruto could do at any time. "I'm not worried that he got lost. You sent him out the second the light broke. It's below 0 today. What if he freezes out there?" Catherine sighed and looked down the snow-covered road. Miller wouldn't tell her about the weekend a few weeks ago when he made Naruto climb a mountain with him and then left with all the climbing gear, leaving him there until Monday. If she was worried about him getting cold now, he wouldn't. He didn't let Naruto take his coat and other things that time, but this time he did. At that time, he gave the kid water, some jerky strips, a survival knife, and some rocks to throw. He also wished the kid luck. It was clear to Miller that Naruto was still mad at him for the last-minute test. "He won't freeze, trust me." Catherine tapped her foot and hit the snow under her boot and said, "And why not? He's just as human as me. I'm 11, he's 13. It's not that big of a deal, and Naruto's crazy." Miller tried to defend him by saying, "He's not that crazy." He was able to tell that Naruto was in a good mental state by giving him tests of his mental health over the last 6 months. But the screws were loose, And who was he to say what was right? What about the time 2 weeks after he got here when he shot himself in the leg to see what it felt like? The young girl asked with a stubborn look on her face. Miller had to agree that what he saw was one of the silliest instances he had ever seen. Naruto's defense, though, is that he shot one of his clones, not himself. For hours afterward, it felt like he had been shot with a 9mm in the middle of his thigh. They still trained with guns, but Naruto wouldn't touch the Beretta because he thought, what better way to get used to guns than to feel what it's like to be shot? Catherine said it straight out, he shot himself, as if that would clear up everything. Miller walked up to Catherine and poked her in the forehead as a joke. First, that boy's body is trained for extreme conditions. Second, I'd like you to join our workouts and see if there's much of a difference between you and him. Catherine took a big step back when Miller said that. She didn't want to be a part of their training after seeing it. She thought their warm-ups were workouts in and of themselves. And finally, to freeze. You kind of need to stop moving, he said in a dry voice. Teaching the brat English was hard for what single reason only, dear? Catherine said, because Naruto hated to sit still and read a book to learn it. It was true. He learned English even faster after they stopped forcing him to do things and just pointed at and named them. Exactly. He's fine, Miller said as he walked back off the porch to finish putting things in his sled. He'll be back after I leave. Tell Naruto that he can rest up for the week when he gets back and no training. Just normal chores. His body needs a break. As he spoke, the huskies tied to the sled started barking happily, which made Miller and Catherine look back at the snowy road that led to their house. A person who was about 5 feet 4 inches tall was jogging up to the property. They were wearing dark blue pants that were appropriate for the weather and a dark blue parka with the hood pulled up and tied around their head. Person wearing a black balaclava and holding 2 large transport bags steadily over their shoulders while wearing gloves said, I got the stuff. The person said out of breath as they stopped by the huskies and put the large bags and pack on the ground. As he walked up to the still happy barking huskies and played with them for a moment, Miller spoke to him. Giving you about 30 minutes to an hour to get everything on the list, I'd say that you just ran basically 40 miles in less than 6 hours. In the snow, he said. The figure's eyes, which were probably closed in a huge grin, said, Naruto, if this were the Foxhound cross-country march you would have smashed the record. Miller narrowed his eyes and asked, you did that tree jumping thing, didn't you? Naruto laughed and pulled back his hood, showing his full balaclava that had a metal plate with a leaf design stitched into the forehead. What's the point of that? The road's a basic straight shot from here to town. Cutting through the woods wouldn't have helped. He then took off his balaclava, revealing bright blue eyes, familiar whisker marks, and spiky blonde hair that was currently matted down from wearing it for so long. Are you jealous, Master Miller? He joked. That smart mouth won't fly in any military brat. Miller told us. He had told Naruto that 1,000 times. You shouldn't talk trash around your bosses even when you're not on duty. Was Naruto smart? Yes, please. Naruto was also a grade A jerk of the highest order, of course. Naruto shrugged and bent down to get the bags again, saying, I guess it did in mine. As Naruto walked toward the house with the things he had brought from town, Miller rolled his eyes behind his sunglasses. Apparently it didn't work because they threw you in a river to get rid of you. They dumped you in my lap to make you a good soldier. I wonder where you'll float to if I throw you back into the stream and let you drift again, Mr. Miller said as he got on his sled and got ready to leave. Naruto said as he jumped up the stairs to the porch, you'll have to wait until spring then, Master Miller. Catherine met him there and opened the door for him. After taking off his boots at the door, Naruto walked into the kitchen and said, Hi kitty. He got a push in response, mean. Don't call me that, jerk, Catherine warned as she watched Naruto drop the bags with a loud thud. How heavy are those? She asked, as Naruto unzipped the bags and began taking out the groceries. Good God Naruto, you make me feel lazy sometimes. She muttered as she tried to pick up one of the bags but had to put it back down again right away. Kids shouldn't have to work like this. Nairo said, this kid does. Catherine didn't like it when he trained so much for some reason. She didn't like that he wanted to be a soldier like Master Miller, at least not as hard as he was working. What else am I going to do with my life? Was his simple answer. He told her, what else am I going to do? Go to work with no identity at all? Besides, Fighting is all I know how to do." Catherine knew that Naruto knew exactly what Miller was going to do when he left. Miller could still do something, and Naruto could get an identity from the people he knows. After that, it was up to him what he would do with it. It was hard to get Naruto to tell us enough to fill in the blanks as needed, though. He was bugged about his birthday for months, or they almost wouldn't have known it. A few weeks ago, they learned that his birthday was on October 10th. They were very upset to learn that it was already past. Catherine tried to talk Naruto out of fighting by asking, "Why do you think you have to fight? You could do something else." Naruto grunted as if he couldn't believe it and asked in Japanese, "What else could I do?" He didn't really want an answer from her, which is why he switched languages. Catherine smiled to herself and said, "Big brother, you could use your brain instead of bullets." She saw him look at her in shock. He hadn't heard her try to use Japanese since he learned enough English to understand how to use it. He had no idea she was better at it now. As they worked alone in the big house, Naruto laughed and said, "Don't you call me a musclehead all the time? I like using blades more. Except for the famous. How did Master Miller get a famous?" Katie said, "Don't ask me." Things always came back to Naruto talking about his fights. He trained all the time, even when he was supposed to be relaxing and watching TV. "I don't know, I don't want to know," she said in a stern voice. She spoke so quickly that Naruto couldn't see her, but he knew what she meant. "Kitty, I know you don't like me wanting to fight. But someone has to do it, you know." Catherine looked at him and asked, "Why?" She then glared at his answer. Soldiers were real people, people died when soldiers fought. He was learning how to be a soldier, so he would either kill or be killed. Why do you have to fight? Why does anyone have to fight? He forgot that Catherine was only 11 years old sometimes. When she was in school, she had the same education as a freshman in high school, and she liked telling Naruto about the world. She knew a lot of things, but there were some things that only a child could understand at least. A child who had never had a good reason to fight. Naruto didn't think like this. "I wish I could give you a good reason, but I only have one, and it doesn't really apply as to why I'm fighting. Maybe when I find out a good reason I can give one to you." "That's not good enough, she said. "How do you think you're going to survive battles without having anything to fight for? I may not know much about war, but Dad always told me that having something you think is worth fighting for helps you come home. When he was a ninja in Konoha, he fought because he wanted to reach a high rank and protect someone. But now he wasn't sure why he would fight. I guess I'll just have to stay alive long enough to come up with my own reason," he thought. She had a frown on her face. She just needed to find a way to talk Naruto out of fighting before he turned around and left. Getting shot in the head wasn't something her big brother was going to do if she could help it. For now, though, his excuse would have to do. 1999, Fairbanks, Alaska. Miller sat down at a bar table and was given a pretty thick file. He stopped it with his hand and laughed briefly. "You work fast, Colonel. I just got you the last bit of information about the kid a week ago." A gentleman in a gray military suit and medals sat across from Miller. "After the mess that was Zanzibar land, I was owed a few favors a little further upstairs. And if you think this kid is worth looking out for, I could at least help you with this. Between you and me, I needed the break anyway," he said. "Military life getting you down, Roy?" Miller joked. "I remember you getting all on my ass for retiring not even a year ago. Can't the high-ranking Colonel Roy Campbell cut it anymore?" Campbell laughed out loud and shook his head. "It's not that I can't cut it, I just don't want it. I keep thinking that you and Snake were right to retire, and I might do the same. It sounds nice." He then added with a wry smile, "Not in Alaska. Thaw, not that this isn't a nice state." Miller smiled. "Alaska's definitely keeping me in shape, to say the least." That and the Brada. He felt a strange pain in his jaw. That's a completely different story, though. No 13-year-old should hit that hard, run that fast, and do any of that other stuff. It was Campbell who asked, "Other stuff?" "Other stuff," Miller said without saying a word. "If you keep an eye on him when he finally begins his career, you'll get what I mean by other stuff. Until then, I'll just keep the surprise to myself." Campbell could only laugh. If Miller was impressed by the kid he had picked up, then that kid had to be pretty cool. The man knew how to train Solid Snake and had worked with Big Boss before. It wouldn't be easy to get praise. "I can't wait to see it." Interior Alaskan wilderness, early 2000. Naruto is 13 years old. As of this point, Naruto knew everything there was to know about the world he lived in. The strange things people used to move around, like cars and airplanes, threw him off. Miller had Catherine videotape his reaction when he first saw what airplanes and helicopters could do so that he would have a record of his ridiculously funny reaction. But, just like with weapons, he adjusted to what he learned and ended up enjoying riding in Miller's truck and learning how to drive it out of necessity. He learned a lot about the United States of America, the country he was living in, and what it meant to be an immigrant. Other people told him that America was more like the Konoha of this world compared to other places. People thought the US was the most powerful country, but unlike Konoha, it had an effect on events all over the world. It was strange to think that there was only one super powerful force that really ran the world. At first, he couldn't believe that one thing could have so much control over everything. It was something he would later wish he had taken more seriously and worked on more in the years to come. He learned a lot by watching TV, but it was educational TV. When Naruto was told that the only reason he was shown TV was to teach him lessons, it's easy to see why he started to dislike it. It was always to learn something new about culture, fights, or history, no matter what he watched. Miller told him what sort of people made the best soldiers he had ever seen. Miller often used fancy language to talk about the man known as Big Boss. He seemed like he could not hurt the man. From the 1950s until his death in 1999, the year Naruto came out, the man had been on dangerous missions for years and years. The person who had at least 3 times in his life stopped a nuclear war. Miller said that Naruto's ability to blend in with the trees was a lot like his own. At times, it seemed like Naruto wasn't even there. At other times, it seemed like he was a spirit or everywhere. People then said that he was like a man named Gray Fox. As a child soldier, Naruto never learned his real name and had to control his nerves when he was compared to a man named Fox. From what he had heard, the man's life was a lot like Naruto's, though Miller said the man's job was much worse. He died in 1999, the same year as Big Boss, after a long life of fighting. The last comparison was made with the only one of these men who was still alive. Gray Fox and Big Boss were both killed by Solid Snake during the same mission. In fact, Solid Snake had 2 wins over Big Boss. Naruto believed Miller when he said that he had fought the best and most famous mercenaries that had ever been brought to one area. Naruto was reminded of his own victory over Gaara's Shukaku demon, which was bigger than him but didn't have any machine guns or missile launchers, when Snake told him stories about how he beat 25 to 40-foot bipedal tanks with nuclear powers. I mean, nuclear weapons. Since he found out his own secret the night he became a ninja, Naruto had thought of the demon inside him as the most dangerous thing in the world. He was scared to know that in this world, everything could end with the push of a button, and there was no way to stop it. He finally understood why he had been ignored and treated badly as a child. Because that's how most people in this world treated the existence of nuclear weapons. If they couldn't be seen, if no one talked about them or admitted that they existed, if people pretended they weren't there, then they wouldn't be afraid. No matter how hard Naruto tried to convince himself that no one would be stupid enough to use such a weapon, it was always possible, just like how people in Konoha tried to convince themselves that he was only a little boy, he could use the Kyuubi no Yoko's awesome power, even if he didn't mean to. In spite of everything, Naruto loved to train. Not even he thought about how he had learned so many things so quickly. He had to thank Master Miller for helping him learn about the military of this world and this country. And he also had to thank Catherine for spending time with him and helping him figure out what was right and wrong. Getting back to Miller. Miller could not keep the frown off of his face as he watched Naruto aim while he practiced his target skills in his spare time. Ta-da-ta-ta. Miller shook his head and palmed his face hard when Naruto's shots went off target. That horrible shooting should not have hurt any small animals in the woods. For the love of God, kid, drop the famous. He pulled it out to show off. He didn't think Naruto would actually want to use it. When Naruto aimed again and glared down the firing field, he said, "No way. That was an improvement, wasn't it? I'm not wasting your time to use it now, master. I'm trying to get good at using it on my own time." Miller walked over to Naruto and quietly turned off the safety, making the gun make an empty sound when Naruto pulled the trigger. "Hey," Miller said. "Didn't you learn anything when I took the saw away from you when you were trying to mess with that? Why didn't I let you use that gun to free shoot with?" Miller asked Naruto as he grabbed the assault rifle from him. Because the recoil kicks my ass, Naruto groaned as he remembered that embarrassing incident. Miller agreed, because the recoil kicks your ass. Naruto understood why he shouldn't use that weapon, even though he hadn't told him that way at the time. Now why did the recoil kick your ass? He asked. Naruto tilted his head and asked, "That's why, right master?" Miller nodded and gave Naruto a mean look. "But I can already use a lot of other stuff," Miller said. "And I don't care what you say, I don't want to use the MAC-11. Or the Beretta," Naruto said afterward. Miller asked him, "Why do you want to use the famous so badly?" But the boy didn't answer. It was strange. When someone found something they couldn't use, they probably wouldn't try to use it again. Naruto just tried again and again. And he had to start locking up the guns so Naruto wouldn't try to go shoot in his free time, which was how he spent a lot of it. The boy really hated watching TV for some reason that Catherine thought was strange. Naruto's point was that he had done cooler things in real life than people made up for movies, but he never went into more detail about what he had done. It wasn't that Naruto wanted to keep to himself. Naruto wouldn't tell them anything about his life after he told them he remembered everything and didn't have amnesia because he was sure they would not believe him if he did. Because they might have put him in jail if they called him crazy, he kept to himself and they didn't bother him. Miller didn't really bother anyone, though. Catherine would often ask Naruto to slow down because she wanted him to stop training so hard. Naruto would make up small stories about himself that were mostly harmless and believable. They would keep him from training until the story was over. The girl didn't understand why Naruto worked so hard. Miller knew. He knew Naruto would be ready for anything when it was his turn to try to make it in the world, which is why he had to take the gun away from him. You can't just force yourself to use a weapon and make it your own. The famous isn't a good fit for you. Naruto said, "Then I'll make it fit well, Master Miller." Naruto knew that he wouldn't always be able to use the weapons that he wanted to use and were good at using because Miller had told him stories about people with the code name Solid Snake. He had to learn how to do and use everything. With guns, bullets, bombs, and other weapons, there was no room for error like there was in his world. You can't tell when a sniper's bullet is coming at you like you can when someone is close behind you. He couldn't be careless about anything, and Miller was willing to teach Naruto everything he knew, which wasn't possible in the world of ninjas where Naruto came from, where rules were stricter. Miller could only look Naruto straight in the eye. The boy wouldn't give up. It was both good and bad to be stubborn. It might save your life or kill you. Naruto was good at using his short arms. Naruto chose to become a surgeon with the Beretta even though he didn't like the gun he used to kill himself. He thought about what Naruto might be able to do if he had a better semi-automatic pistol instead of the cheap Beretta. Still, Naruto hated submachine guns very much, especially the MAC-11 that he had to learn how to use. Miller didn't know why he was so angry at them. It looked like that weapon was made for a soldier like Naruto, who was almost certainly going to be the fastest person on the battlefield. He moved as quickly as he could and used a weapon that was easy to carry and reload. It was perfect for him. That's not all. Naruto was fast, he was also sudden. Naruto's movements were jerky when he was fighting, and he was hard to control when they first started practicing with blanks. After being shot at for more than 6 months, Naruto got better and better at dodging threats. Naruto stopped using his clones to cover or take damage for him like he would have in his own world after learning that they would hurt him in return. This meant that Naruto's use of cover was growing by leaps and bounds. Miller had called Naruto's use of blind firing from behind cover a movie trick. In a way, it was beautiful. He trained for 6 months and was now able to hit his target just as sound or a change in the air made it possible. He would miss most of the time, but if he hit the target, it would move, giving him a chance to shoot again. Miller's training in stealth was also well received. Naruto was very good at being sneaky. Naruto was a kid who liked to talk a lot, but he knew when to be quiet and sneak around. He didn't like being loud except when he flapped his gums. It was impossible for him to walk in a way that would hide his footsteps when he was wearing boots. Miller had to break him of the dangerous habit of running around the forest barefoot. He did it once in the snow at the beginning of winter because he didn't like wearing boots that much. Naruto didn't like wearing clothes that made noise when they moved. At first, he would rather throw or use a knife than a gun. But then he learned that many guns can come with suppressors that make gunfire less loud. He also showed Miller his unique way of not leaving footprints by staying close to the trees as much as possible. Catherine had joked that he was Spider-Man, so Naruto started calling her Kitty, which took her back to when he was learning English and learning how to spell their names. Catherine and Cat share the first 3 letters, so Naruto knew just the perfect name to give Catherine and used it all the time. Catherine really hated playing hide and seek with Naruto, even though it was clear that Naruto couldn't leave the property around the house or hide somewhere Catherine couldn't get to. She couldn't find him anywhere, not even in the snow where he had left tracks. One look at Naruto is enough to turn a 10 or 11-year-old off of a game. Miller didn't need to go over the idea of camouflage and other similar things. It was only a matter of polishing a few of Naruto's stealthy skills, like not making noise and staying hidden until it was too late for the enemy to do anything. During their early training, Naruto had a bad habit of running straight at Miller while he was hiding, who had his back turned. A very bad habit to have if your enemy had a gun and you didn't. He had to teach Naruto that you should wait until your enemy walked by your hiding place without even noticing you before you attack. Naruto was looking through the weapons on the table that was left for him to use, but not the famous. He couldn't help but think that Naruto had more than a few soldier genes in him. He learned everything Miller taught him with great interest, and he quickly understood the basics of how to fight. It was like he was born to fight. Like his use of the famous, he just needed to learn that there were some things he couldn't do and shouldn't try to force. He was going to die if he used something that wasn't meant for him, and it seemed like a lesson that could only be learned through danger. That is something that Miller could not make happen at home, and Naruto could not learn that in any kind of boot camp. That was a lesson learned on the battlefield, and those were the most dangerous ones. When he thought about that, he could see why Catherine was hesitant to talk or think about Naruto leaving to join the army. Miller said that, besides his failed attempts to fire the famous, Naruto's favorite gun was the reliable and easily customizable Heckler & Koch Mark 23 SOCOM pistol, which he picked up. Even though it was a good weapon, Naruto would have to carry a very heavy one with him if he chose to use it in battle. He was sure Naruto would want the suppressor and the extra laser sight on the gun, which would make it weigh 5 pounds altogether. Naruto emptied a magazine at the set targets and frowned. "I need some moving targets again soon so I don't get rusty," he told himself. He could always make clones and tell them to fight him in a fake battle, but that was a bad idea for many reasons. That meant he had to work with targets that didn't move. "I've pulled some strings," Miller said as he watched Naruto empty his magazine and get ready to reload. "What would you say to 6 months before you leave?" Naruto asked again, putting his gun down on the table and turning to face the older blonde. "6 months? You can get me a real spot somewhere in 6 months?" Miller smiled and nodded. "Consider it one last favor from a friend of mine before he retires. He's also the man that helped me get you an identity all set up. You are now Naruto Uzumaki, United States citizen by way of immigration from Japan, born to an unknown Japanese mother and a roaming mercenary father, both deceased shortly around the time of your birth. I am your sponsor for your residence as a citizen. I was until you were legally emancipated. Or so the records say, and you will have to memorize all of the false information in your records. Congratulations, by the way," he finished with a proud look. "Wow," Naruto said in a low voice, swearing in Japanese to show how amazed he was. "You must really be connected, Master Miller." "You don't know the half of it, kid," Miller said with a grin as he put his eyeglasses. "When you get yourself into the army and dust right through boot camp, people are going to be knocking down your door to get to you. And you will dust right through it. For the love of God, I've been training you like a damn foxhound recruit for the last 6 months and you still haven't failed anything yet. The only problem is your attitude. You need to know how to follow orders, kid. You're still rebellious when I tell you things." Naruto had always had trouble with disobeying orders. Before he left Konoha, he did what Kakashi told him to do, but he often complained a lot when he didn't like what he was told to do. He couldn't even complain here. Based on what Miller had taught him, he couldn't do that here. He got harsher punishments for swearing, and if he didn't straighten up when Miller told him to, he had to do workouts that were so hard that Naruto would black out and not be able to respond to Miller. Miller would do it again the next day because he knew Naruto's body could handle it. He was no longer as disobedient as he used to be. After 6 months of working out his smartass, he was fine, but because of Naruto's personality, it would probably come back at the worst time, like when he was at boot camp. Since it was already clear that the kid was a jerk, it depended on whether or not his drill sergeant planned to pick on him often. Naruto wasn't going to let that go, though. When Naruto couldn't act the way he really wanted to, he would fake it for a short time. Just long enough to get to a point where it didn't matter anymore. He never wanted a job at a desk all along. In Konoha, he always didn't understand how those people could stand it, and now it was even worse. The only thing Naruto wanted to do was fight. He was still sure of himself. Miller had put a lot of work into him. He felt better than he ever had, and he would feel even better in 6 months. Who else trained in the special forces before they joined the regular military? It made him remember being a kid in the big ninja clans at the academy. He would be better than the others this time. Naruto said, "I won't let you down, Master Miller." He then turned and gave the salute that Miller taught him was right for the US soldier. "You'll see, I'll be the best." Miller smiled and said, "You probably will, kid. You probably will." After 6 months, the very simple setup that was Naruto's room at the Miller house had him sitting on the bed while he finished packing. He could finally leave. He had grown up again. His 5 feet 7 inches body was ready for anything after being shaped for over a year in the harshest parts of Alaska's constantly changing climate. Not one more thing could have been done to get ready. When he opened the door, he saw Catherine, who was 11 years old, leaning against it and staring at him with her green eyes. He wasn't a fool, Naruto. After a year, he knew that she was completely in love with him in the Alaskan wilderness. He and her father were the only people there for her. She never saw her mother, and Naruto was the only person she ever got along with. He was her best friend and brother in every way except blood. She did everything she could think of to keep him. Both her birthday and Christmas, which were close to each other, she told him she didn't want a gift and just wanted Naruto to stay. That got Naruto to get her to say the things he really wanted to hear so he could give her the right gifts. Naruto kept trying to get her to tell him something, and in the end he forced her to. She asked Naruto to teach her how to shoot in the hopes that she could stop him from training or maybe get him interested in teaching her so that he could stay longer until she was good. She found out that wasn't helpful when Naruto happily told her how great she was at shooting his favorite handgun. It went wrong for her because she got good too quickly. She tried so hard to keep him, but in the end she couldn't. Time went by so quickly. She could only enjoy her free time. He was always with her when he wasn't training. She was always going to find him, no matter what. He learned the drill in the end, and after training, he would always find her on his own. He seemed to enjoy her company just as much as she did his, and neither of them ever complained about the other being there. So why? Why did he want to leave so badly? She didn't get it. He would miss everything. It was likely that she would never see him again. It was awful. They wanted to follow Naruto to his training, but her dad kept saying, "You're really leaving tomorrow." Naruto didn't look up to face her, but he did say, "Yeah." It was likely that making eye contact with her would make Catherine cry, which was the last thing he wanted. He wasn't even able to give her a good reason for leaving. He told her he only wanted to fight, which made her angry. "It'll be okay, Kitty," he said. When he called her by her nickname, Naruto, Catherine shook her head and said, "No, it won't. Don't lie to me, Naruto." She gripped the doorframe tightly and asked, "What am I going to do if you're not here?" "You're not coming back." Naruto frowned and finally looked up at her. "Don't say that. Are you kidding me? Why wouldn't I come back? I love you guys. You're the only people I know." He laughed briefly and asked, "What are you talking about?" He moved his bag to the bed next to him and gave it a pat. "Come here. Talk to me." Catherine slowly made her way over to him and sat down next to him, putting her head on his shoulder. "I'm scared, Naruto. What if you die and I never get to see you again?" She asked. "Stop saying that," she told him, rolling her eyes. "If you say something like that enough times, it will happen." "Do you want me to die?" Catherine looked at him with shock and shook her head. "Then stop saying that I am. Believe in me. It's not like I'm going to war or something, I'm just training. You'll see me at Christmas." He gave her a fake stern look and asked, "Are you going to let me come back for Christmas?" Catherine could tell he was making fun of her, so she laughed and said, "Of course. Naruto, Dad would never turn you away. When you get back, I promise there will be tons of ramen here for you. We have time to stock up without you eating it all now." Naruto put the bag on his bed and said, Well, if we're making plans for something later. He then pulled out a necklace with what looked like a very valuable gem on the end of it. Then I want you to keep this safe for me. I'll probably lose it at boot camp. He gave it to her and said, this was a gift from someone who thought I would be special one day. I definitely want it back later. When Naruto first showed up, that necklace was always on him. During his sleep, he fought her off when she tried to take it from around his neck. He wore it close to his heart and tucked it under his shirt even when he was training with Miller. She knew it meant something to him because it was the only thing he owned that was truly valuable. It meant a lot to her, so she gave him a big hug and said, I'll take good care of it. You know I love you, right? I'm going to miss you. Naruto replied, I'll call you whenever I get the chance. She hugged him back and said, you can't get rid of me that easily. As she pressed herself against him and nodded, Catherine said, it doesn't matter where you came from. Family or not, you're still my big brother. She began to cry on his chest. She had no idea that Naruto was broken all over just by being there and hearing all of that from her. She knew he was weird. After learning that he had strange powers that no one else could do in a body that no one could understand, she still loved him like he was her own brother, even though he had no real background and never told her anything personal about it. There's no way I'm not coming back, Kitty. Just you wait, I'll see you in a few months, he said. He loved her like his little sister because she was the only girl who had ever come this close. It was the next day in Fairbanks, Alaska. It was possible for people who weren't on the flight to follow Naruto. He was standing at the end of the line. He was wearing brown boots, loose blue jeans, a black flight jacket with the zipper up, and a black skull cap with a metal plate with the leaf symbol stitched on the front. With one bag that held everything important he had found in the world so far, he said, I guess I'll see you guys around. Miller put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, almost face to face with the boy who had been a general runt the previous year. Just don't freak out when the plane takes off. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Remember everything I taught you, and don't forget about us, kid. Kate then said, and call. I want to know how you're doing. Naruto smiled at her and said, Kitty, I promise I'll call you all the time. She hit Naruto hard in the shoulder and said, don't call me Kitty. Naruto scratched his nose and said, I'll stop calling you Kitty when I drop dead, which was meant to make her mad. He then opened his arms, and Catherine ran in for one last hug before he left, this time holding back tears. Naruto gave Miller a firm handshake and a salute after she let go, which Miller returned before Naruto started walking to his flight. Don't shoot yourself at basic training. Catherine's voice called out. Naruto stopped in his tracks when he heard her laugh through the terminal. She waved when he turned around and gave her a fake glare. He laughed and shook his head as he walked to his plane. Naruto had started his one-site unit training in August, and it was now past midnight. He thought that everything was going as he had been trained to expect so far. Even though getting his hair cut made him mad, he didn't really care after a day or two. It was just hair. He did so badly on the physical assessment test that he could have done it while asleep when he was 9 years old. Getting around a mile in no time. That's it. He knew right away that his drill sergeant would target him because he was 14 years old, which was no surprise. The man wanted to test him because he was an immigrant minor who had become free but was only there because of several recommendations from people higher up in the food chain. Badly, Naruto's reason for what was hard was what Master Miller had taught him. The things that were not up to par in his daily life. By week 2, he still hadn't been able to stop the man from hazing him, but the first week of unarmed combat training was very good for him. Positive. He was picked to represent his whole platoon against the best of the others at the end of the training period. The others didn't believe that a 14-year-old boy could beat anyone in his training group so quickly and decisively. There was no choice. Even though the people he fought had a lot of hand-to-hand training, so had Naruto. He had been in more fights than a new army recruit could say they had, and he had never fought someone his own size. Especially when he was a ninja, he had always fought people who were bigger than him. In this case, the playing field was level because Naruto had a growth spurt and became very fast and strong, which he tried to control but failed to do. He just couldn't hold back. Naruto was the best at the obstacle parts of training. It was easy to climb the victory tower without using chakra, which is something he hadn't done at all when he first got there so as not to scare people even more than his skill already did. The M16 assault rifle was easy for Naruto to learn how to use, even more so than the famous, which he had been dying to learn how to use properly while he was in Alaska. Naruto was actually very good at all of the weapons that were being shown so that new members could get used to them. Naruto liked being faster than everyone else, so he didn't like heavy weapons like the 249 SAW machine gun or the M2.50 caliber heavy machine gun. Using a weapon that could sweep like that would negate his speed advantage if he fought in open areas or places with little cover. When something new was put in front of Naruto, he could either do it right away or learn how to do it by the end of the week and do it better than anyone expected. Naruto was able to smooth out his wrinkles in just 9 weeks of basic fighting training. Naruto had learned to be skilled and good at working with others by working in squads in his home village, but he wasn't seen as much of a leader, and he was disliked by his training group until he was finally told what was going on. During free time, the simple question, "Why are you here?" was asked with the expectation of a childish answer. This was because Naruto had a reputation for being happy and fun when he wasn't being watched by the drill sergeant. The other platoons knew this because the boy never frowned. Naruto was expected to answer right away, but no one in the barracks was expecting him to pause. Everyone was waiting for him to answer. Many of you have things you can do or other things you want to do after you get out of the army. I'm not leaving. All I know how to do is fight, so I guess I'll just keep doing that until someone gets lucky and kills me. He then laughed and smiled bigly and said, "It's not like I want to take any desk job either. That's way too boring, you know, I'm a fighter." Many of them were shocked by his rather morbid answer, but the way his voice sounded as he said it, the casual way he spoke, and the fact that this was going to be how he lived didn't seem to bother him at all changed how they saw him. His interactions with the other soldiers in his platoon had gotten a lot better by the time he got back from Christmas break in Alaska with Miller and Catherine. During Christmas break in December 2000, Naruto was 14 years old and in the interior of Alaska. Naruto was taking this time off to rest, which he had been putting off for more than a year and a half since he came to this world. Putting on a pair of cargo shorts and an army t-shirt, he was lying on a couch in the loft, being lazy. On the couch where he had woken up, he liked to do nothing more than anything else in the Miller house. Following her return from feeding the huskies outside in the snowy wilds, Catherine found him here. "Dad says to get your butt up and tell him what you want for Christmas before he heads out to Fairbanks to get the stuff." Naruto laughed and looked at the other blonde. "Christmas? Seriously? I don't need or really want anything. What am I, 10 like you?" he joked, making fun of Catherine's age. Throwing her foot to the ground, she yelled, "I'm 12, you jerk." Naruto smiled and said, "I know. By the way, did you like the gift I sent you?" Kate blinked as she looked at the figure of her older brother. Even though they talked on the phone often, he never said that he knew it was her birthday, and she never told him. She thought he had enough to worry about without having to worry about sending a gift across the country, especially since her birthday was right before he went back for Christmas break. But he didn't get that message and was still able to send her a gift from where he was. It was beyond her comprehension how he could have bought her something so pricey as a laptop, given how stubborn he was. But then again, Naruto would definitely buy himself something if he had the money, and unfortunately, it was something he couldn't have with him while he was training in Georgia. Catherine happily replied, "Yes, I did. Thank you for the laptop, Naruto." He was always kind to her. "Sorry. I tried to send you ramen for your birthday, but Dad said you would just get yourself into trouble by eating it every single moment you had free time." Naruto made a face. He hadn't had ramen in a while. Hearing that Catherine had tried to send him some but was stopped by Miller made him angry, and he wanted to go find his trainer and hit him with his fists and feet. But he also knew that giving an addict what he wants is the worst thing you can do, and if someone had given Naruto what was probably an economy-sized box of ramen in different flavors, he would have eaten it like a wild animal and gotten himself into trouble. "Don't worry, kitty," Naruto told her with a smile as he watched her take off her boots and white coat. "It's the thought that counts. Thank you." She sat down in the chair next to Naruto's nesting couch and turned on the TV that he often forgot to turn on. "No problem. Ramen is so super cheap. You sure like weird food as your favorite," she said, pointing to the kitchen. "I actually did buy it though. It's downstairs in the kitchen right now." When she turned to the side, Naruto was staring at her intensely, which made her a little uneasy. "What? Naruto just put his hands in the seal for his favorite ninjutsu, which created a clone that went downstairs right away to get Naruto the ramen he had worked so hard for. It wasn't even close to as good as the food from his favorite restaurant in Konoha, but it was the best he could get without going to Japan. After telling his double to fix his treat, he smiled at Catherine and said, "You do know that I love you very much, don't you?" Catherine touched the necklace he had left for her and said, "I know." The necklace was around her neck and stood out. She gave him a sweet smile and scratched his head, where his hair had grown back after being shaved. "Then don't call me Kitty anymore," she said. Naruto sighed happily as he flipped a throwing knife in his hand. "I'll stop calling you Kitty when I drop dead." "Ow," he muttered as Catherine painfully pulled on one of his cheeks. "Just so you know, I am holding a knife," Catherine said, still stroking Naruto's cheek, "but you'll never stab me. You love me so much. I'm your little sister. You would fight a bear for me. If you don't let go of my cheek, I'll tie you up, take you into the forest, and feed you to a damn bear," Naruto said with a twitching right eye. "The ramen train is coming, and I am about to destroy the bowl." As planned, Naruto's clone came up the stairs with a steaming bowl of ramen and gave it to him. It then gave him a pair of chopsticks and disappeared on Naruto's mental command. Catherine saw him break his chopsticks, mutter something in Japanese, and start to eat what was in the very large bowl. "Did you get the biggest bowl in the house?" she asked. "How many packets of ramen are in there?" he asked with a nod. Then he dug back in with all his might and said, "4." Naruto ate all of his food in less than 5 minutes and then set his bowl down, happy with himself. Catherine shook her head as she continued to search for something interesting to watch on TV. When she saw Naruto's eyes light up at the sight of an old martial arts movie marathon for Christmas, she decided to stop watching. "You're so gross," she said in reference to Naruto's eating habits. Naruto. Hearing Miller's drill sergeant voice made Naruto quickly stand at attention. This made Catherine laugh because Naruto was standing with one foot bare in his huge bowl that used to hold his ramen and broth. "That's so mean, Dad. He's probably scared every time someone calls his name like that at his base," Catherine said. "Don't worry, kid. I know Catherine told you what I asked. What do you want for Christmas?" Miller asked with a smirk as he walked up the stairs. He sat back down on the couch and ignored the broth on Miller's foot. "Well, first of all, I want you to never do that again for obvious reasons, and I want more ramen, lots more ramen. And if you think you're getting too much ramen, I want you to get a little more because there's no such thing as too much ramen," he said. He really wanted to indulge. As Naruto ate ramen, Miller shook his head and said with a smirk, "You are the cheapest person to go Christmas shopping for. My wallet thanks you." "Whatever, don't thank me now," Naruto said flippantly before pointing at him. His eyes closed. "When I graduate after 8, advanced individual training, in 4 months I'll be expecting my own damn setup of guns and ammo in my room waiting on me when I come back. Also find someone that can craft me some kunai and shuriken. I can still throw and use those better than the knives." Catherine made fun of Naruto by saying, "Ninja wannabe. Do you really think you can use real shuriken?" Since he moved in with them, she had learned that Naruto was very interested in ninjas once he knew they existed. He had called himself a ninja several times after telling them about his past, asking, "Are you sure you're not Japanese? Because that sounds like it came straight out of a manga." She loved him so much, but she was too young to believe it. It was true. Miller did believe him, because he knew ninjas for real. The idea that Naruto might be one wasn't that far-fetched at all. He had seen Solid Snake fight one in Zanzibar land not even 6 months before Naruto showed up. "I hate you," Naruto grumbled, gnashing his teeth. "Do I need to pull out any more superpowers out of my ass before you start believing the shit I say or what? Because I've already thrown all the ones I've got at you." Catherine gently reprimanded him, "Language. Get bent," Naruto replied, but Miller and Catherine hit him in the head. "You see, this is why I keep big parts of my past from you guys. Not because you'd be scared, but because you'd act like this." He jumped off the couch and began to rant, "Give me some kunai, some shuriken, some metal wire, hell I'd show you all how much of a ninja I really am. 2 years younger than me. Gonna tell me I ain't a ninja." Just as he was about to laugh, Catherine stopped him and said, "I think I just made him mad." She then got up and happily chased after him. "So does your drill sergeant know you're a ninja too, Naruto?" Hearing Naruto complain loudly from the other room made her smile. I guess he was right. Besides the fact that he's been gone more, nothing else has really changed. When Naruto went back to Fort Benning after Christmas break to finish the first part of his training, he was actually told he should join the US military Army Ranger School because he was told what he would face would be much harder than what he had learned so far. Prepared for the challenge and excited about the chance to fight more quickly, Naruto accepted the challenge. He was trained for more than 2 months in the types of combat he was most comfortable with. He learned more about ambushes, raids, and moving from place to place more quietly. And it was hard on the body. The fact that the exercises were twice or even 3 times as hard as the ones he had been given at base wasn't the real problem. He still breezed through them. He only ate 2 meals a day instead of 3, and he sometimes carried around 90 pounds of gear, which was more than he had been trained to do. He only slept about 3 hours a night after days that included 20 hours of training, which taught him to really value free time. People really admired the work he did with his squad in this area. Every time they did practice missions, he was spot on. He knew how to handle ambushes and firefights. He loved the climbing part of Ranger School just as much as he loved it with Master Miller. It was a given that he would enjoy and be good at anything that had to do with things he already knew how to do. He hated having to train in the Georgia swamps, but he knew how to handle working in wild places. It wasn't even close to being the forest of death. There weren't enough dangerous things in the Georgia swamps to try to kill him. But the thing he hated most was training for battle in the deserts. It went against everything he had learned. There wasn't much cover, nowhere to run to, or good vantage points, and it was hard to spot traps. He hated it so much, but he got through it and graduated in the spring of 2001. For the most part, he was just waiting at a base not too far from where he had finished basic training. I'm just waiting and drilling. I'm not doing anything dangerous. Naruto was eager to use his abilities, but there was nothing he could do. In the meantime, he was constantly called in for physicals, blood work, and x-rays. It seemed like the doctors couldn't get him in often enough for their liking. Naruto was also put through a lot of tests, most of which were pretty silly. Some of the tests were very hard and tested his limits, like how long he could hold his breath underwater and how long he could handle temperatures well over 120 F before passing out. He thought these things were weird. He was told that they were testing him to see how he would do in some kind of special forces. They had even dropped the name Foxhound a few times. But after the tests were over, they would always tell him that they needed him to get real battle experience, no matter how well the tests went. He also noticed that there were no soldiers in the area where he was testing, even though most of the people he was testing for were in the military. But there were a lot of people who looked like doctors and scientists. He didn't think much about it because he didn't feel out of the ordinary. When he was done, they paid him well, so he could buy Catherine presents and thank Master Miller for everything he had done. He thought it was all just a way to pass the time and get better, but he was getting bored. Then, in a way, his prayers were answered in the fall. Even though he wished it didn't have to cost so much, he was going to getting to fight. September 2001 in Fairbanks, Alaska. Kate read every newspaper she could get her hands on over the last 2 weeks while sitting at the kitchen table. People were angry and wanted the blood of those who had attacked them. They were also afraid that something like this would happen again. 2 planes were taken over and flown into the World Trade Center, killing over 2,000 people in New York City. The United States was said to be going to Afghanistan to fight the enemy because they knew exactly where they were. To fight them, they were going to be fought by Naruto. Everything she had read and seen on TV told her that there was no other choice but to take this course. She was looking for any sign that he wasn't going to go, but he had already called Master Miller and asked for any tips on how to fight in the desert. Like Naruto asked, Catherine listened as her father did what he said. Then she hung up the phone and told Naruto, "Give them hell, brat. And you'd better not die over there." When he called her the next day, he didn't ask any military questions. Instead, he joked with her, asked her about things going on around the house, and how she was doing. But she knew. He finally told her, and she was brave until he hung up. Then she started to cry. She learned that he was sent away at the end of the month. He would miss his October 15th birthday for sure. He most likely wouldn't be there for her December 13th birthday. He would likely miss Christmas too, if he ever came back. Catherine thought to herself, "Why does it have to be you?" As she got up from the table to turn off the TV upstairs. She could not take it any longer. "You're just a kid, like me. Don't fight," she said quietly as she left the room. She didn't see her dad walk in from the other side while she was doing that. Kate was scared, and Miller knew it. She had many good reasons to be scared. She just didn't get this, though. He could not turn off, not even if he wanted to. He was created to fight. He did everything he could. He was likely dying from just sitting at a base and rotting. And he sounded so excited when he called to ask for help. He wished for it. A person with experience could hear the desire in his voice, but he probably didn't even know it himself. March 2002, Philippines. Naruto is 15 years old. Naruto spent 2 months in Afghanistan in the end. He hadn't seen much action, but it was enough to get his feet wet. Being shot at and having people try to kill him gave him a rush of adrenaline, but that wasn't what he really wanted. He was one of the first people to arrive, but after that, he was pushed back so that other people could see the fighting instead of him. Then, in January, he was chosen to move to defend the Philippines armed forces against Islamic groups in the country. He had only been in combat for 4 months in Afghanistan, so he didn't know why he was chosen to move from there, and he didn't really care. He was traveling the world more, which gave him the chance to fight in a more tropical, wooded area, which was better for him. It made him happy. Most of the time because he was part of the force that led moves into dangerous areas of interest. Even though he was new, he was put in charge of a counter-terrorist strike force that fought most of the insurgents from Abu Sayyaf and Jamaa Islamiyah. He had always wanted to be there. Naruto could hear the young man next to him yelling, "I hate the Pacific." They were lying on a low roof in the rain, both of them wearing dark ponchos and looking into a gated-off group of warehouses. As night fell, Naruto's team had moved to Calamba, a very large city in the Philippines, for an operation. "I thought that when 9/11 happened I'd be in the desert more. Now I'm wet, it's miserable here. I thought we avoided the monsoon season?" His blonde hair was hidden under the hood of his work poncho as he laughed. "Well then I hate the desert. I'm glad I'm here instead of there. I didn't like being so out in the open most of the time. If I get caught here, it's my fault. Out there, it's luck." This is what Naruto's partner said. "Whatever, ninja boy." Naruto looked at him with his blue eyes and glared back. He looked into the facility through binoculars, but he could still feel Naruto's eyes burning a hole in him. "Calm down. I swear you were way too excited to do this, op kid," Naruto said. While looking through his own binoculars, Naruto rolled his eyes and said, "DJ, you're so lazy. Would you rather be stomping through the jungles like we've been doing? Or would you like to go back to training with the Filipino Marines? That was fun." "Fun for you," said DJ, scratching under his poncho-covered bucket hat. "Fun because you didn't get beat up when they were going over unarmed combat, which they do a lot. I keep forgetting why I keep you around instead of putting you with one of the others." While acting hopeful, Naruto asked, "Is it my cute personality that's melting the ice around your frozen heart?" Thoughts crossed DJ's mind as he said, "No, more like because someone had to keep your baby Doberman behind on a leash." "Good God, kid, do you listen to yourself talk sometimes?" Naruto wiped the rain off of his glasses and asked, "Why would I? No one else ever listens to what I have to say, so why should I?" "Oh, looks like it's showtime," DJ said that he saw 2 guards on the warehouse they were watching suddenly fall off the roof without any bones. "Work that witchcraft of yours, Wonderboy," DJ said. It was clear that the others had done their homework and killed any dangerous guards with good views, said with a grin. "Up yours," Naruto said in a low voice as he made his signature hand seal. He had told the people he worked with over and over that his skills were ninjutsu, not magic. Is that not true? As a puff of smoke quickly spread out in the rain, 3 Cage Bunshin appeared and jumped off the low roof. They then quickly cut through the fence that was blocking them from getting into the warehouse. After that, he turned around and saw DJ angry at him. She said, "Oh, sorry. Up yours, sir." DJ had been on and off with operations like this for 4 years, and at first didn't like being stuck with a kid, no matter how well known he was after coming back from Afghanistan. Even so, Naruto won him over by not acting like a rookie and showing that he knew how to work in the woods and when it was time to do his job. He was thrown off by the fact that she was 7 years younger than him, but who says 15-year-olds can't shoot. As soon as he saw Naruto making copies of himself, he knew there was more to his rookie. But it was clear that Naruto was his own team and only needed to be told what to do to complete his missions. He had never made more than 5 before. He was the best person for this job because he was Naruto's direct boss. Naruto looked over at his Kage Bunshin, who were working like well-oiled machines. He was able to tell his clones what to do by thinking about it much better after being in boot camp. The orders he gave were more precise and clear. For example, he could give standing orders that would have been very clear to real soldiers, like to take cover and stay there, and if in doubt, keep the original alive. He was taken off the battlefields in Afghanistan because he was becoming too well known for using that method, whether he knew it or not. On all sides, people began to talk, and when civilians learned that American soldiers were thought to have strange powers, they were scared. He was used to Naruto's quirks, like the clones and other powers he knew about. Why didn't we just sleep through the fence with that blue ball thing of yours? Naruto glared at him from the corner of his eye and said, because I wouldn't have made a hole with it on something so weak, I would have knocked the whole thing over and tipped these guys off. His clones had disappeared, their job done, and Naruto didn't want to risk them being found and being shot because he could feel their pain. The hole is set. Let's go. You weren't even looking at them, the DJ said. How did you know they were done? He asked as he and Naruto fell from the roof, their boots splashing in the mud below them as they slid to the opening in the fence. Naruto gave a weak explanation. Mental contact. He didn't know. All he knew was that when he told his clones to do something, he knew they did it when they said, "We're late, shouldn't we be going?" The Naruto and DJ sneaked into the area with DJ by moving through a maze of dark storage containers. Taking the lead, Naruto stayed out of sight while holding his MP5K submachine gun with the grip attachment and silencer. They weren't aware that they were there until 3 people came around a corner on the same path and looked in the opposite direction. His sharp whistle was supposed to be met with a similar whistle, but he could hear the men ahead start to talk in a suspicious way. DJ raised his silenced M4A1 carbine assault rifle at the same time that Naruto raised his MP5K. With 2 quick bursts of fire from Naruto and 1 from DJ, they quickly killed all 3 targets. Naruto quickly made 3 Kage Bunshin and told them where to hide the bodies in case a patrol found them. The Naruto and DJ they looked at each other, nodded, and then went on. This mission needed to be done quickly. The mission was meant to be a surprise attack that would get a target alive quickly. When they got to a new corner in the storage unit maze, when I looked past the end, I saw guards standing in front of an iron gate. To hide again, he leaned back and hit Naruto in the chest. Then he made the sign for 2 by pointing in the direction the men were going and then straight up. When Naruto caught his drift, he climbed up the storage unit without making a sound. He then slid on his belly over to the iron fence where the guards were stationed on the other side. DJ once more looked around the corner to see how Naruto was doing. He almost let out a gasp when he saw Naruto standing up in a crouch on the roof next to the fence. Naruto looked around to see if anyone, besides his targets, could see what he was going to do next. He then jumped over the iron gate and landed on the other side, right behind the 2 men who turned to see what had happened. As they turned, Naruto hit one of them in the throat with a back elbow, knocking him out and leaving him unable to scream. Naruto ended up slamming the other guard's head hard into the iron gate, knocking him out, and then grabbing him tightly around the mouth to block his sound. After that, Naruto hit the first enemy with his MP5K, which quickly put him to sleep. He turned around and blew the same whistle that DJ did as he looked back at the main warehouse building they were supposed to break into. Had done earlier, and the same man did the same thing back, then went to the iron gate that Naruto was manually opening. Naruto then started making big kung fu movie moves in front of DJ. Whispered as he took the lead again, "You had a gun, you know," and hit him on the back of the head. Natsu replied, "Bullets are cheap, but my fists are free, Sergeant." He did this while following along in silence. The 2 skulked along until they came across a group of 7 soldiers wearing dark ponchos that looked a lot like theirs. DJ let out the familiar whistle to let them know they were there, and as the others looked at them, they blow back the same whistle. Naruto then slid behind the soldiers and he moved to the front. "Alright, we're almost done with this one. We just need to get the bastard we came for and we're out. Higgins and Carter, you're going to get the vehicles we're using to get us out of here like we planned. Jameson and Ross are going to cover you and clear the way to the front of the building. These 4 men were all mentioned by DJ. They understood as they were sent to do their jobs. What about us? Asked the other cloaked figure with Naruto, and DJ asked. Wes, you and Uzumaki are with me. DJ. He pointed at the door they could see and said, we're after Samir Bayani. You both know what he looks like. Anyone else, put them down. Then he told Naruto, kid, take the lead. You're the best at killing people alive. Naruto said, yes, and moved closer to the door to get ready for his part. The man named Wes pulled a grenade out from under his poncho. He then put his finger inside the pin and pulled it off. Naruto put his right hand into a blue ball of spinning energy and slammed it against the door. This blew the door off its hinges, letting Wes throw the grenade inside while they all hid on the outside wall. A lot of yells could be heard from the dead and hurt people who were caught in the explosion as the grenade went off right after going through the open doorway. Now that the doorway was clear, Naruto ran in and took off his poncho to get to his fighting gear faster. The young blonde man's hair was now almost to his neck, and he wore a black headband with a leaf-shaped metal plate on his forehead. He wore black boots, dark urban-colored pants with a sidearm holster on the right thigh and a pouch for Naruto's less common weapons on the left thigh. He also wore a black shirt that stopped at his biceps, a belt around his waist to hold all of his other normal gear in place, a big pack on his back, and a ballistic vest over his shirt. Along his right arm, up to his elbow, there was a separate sleeve from his shirt. The top and bottom of his arm had slots for throwing knives. Naruto put away his MP5K for now and pulled out his handgun from his right thigh holster. It was the SOCOM pistol, which he knew very well and had all of its attachments. Wes asked Naruto, why are you using your sidearm? As Naruto leaned against the wall by the half-turn that leads down the hall. Naruto blinked and looked at DJ and Wes, who had both taken off their ponchos. Naruto hit himself on the head and said, duh, you're right. He then put his gun away and reached into his left leg pouch to get a strange black double-edged knife. The handle was wrapped in white tape to make it easier to hold. Naruto spinned the weapon in a showy way by using the ring at the end of the handle for other purposes. He then held it in a reverse grip with his right hand and said, that's better. He then grabbed his pistol with his left hand and held it in the right position for aiming while bracing it from the bottom with his kunai hand. Before he talked to DJ, Wes watched Naruto creep down the hall and said, sir, I really don't get why he uses those knives and his other weapons. DJ, as he moved through the back hallways of their target building, he told them, stop worrying about the kid and just watch out. He knows how to use his weapons. He wouldn't have brought them if he didn't, trust me. The two of them stopped at a corner when they heard footsteps coming from the direction they were going. When Naruto saw that his shadow was blocking the open hallway, he moved his back against a different wall and waved for DJ to follow him. And Wes to wait before they followed him and got close to the corner he had just turned around. Some bad guys ran down the path that Naruto was waiting at the end of. Suddenly, Naruto walked right into their path and hit the man in front of them 3 times, stopping him in the middle of a step. The fallen man blocked his partner's view, which gave Naruto a good chance to close the 15-foot gap between himself and the second man. Naruto turned around and slammed his shoulder into the body of the second man, driving him into the wall. He briefly moved away from the man he had just shot. Naruto stabbed one of the men in the wrists with his kunai, which pinned it against the wall and let him easily knock him out with his pistol whip. DJ the sergeant followed him down the hall with a smirk on his face. What did I say? The little punk's a machine. Wes had seen him do this and keep going to get the target. Naruto didn't seem to mind fighting close up, which is usually a bad idea, so Wes replied, I guess so. They would have heard the noise we've been making. Bayani's probably on his way out by now. He isn't getting away. The DJ replied, now that the enemy knows they're here, we need to move quickly and finish the job while things are probably still disorganized. As soon as they caught up to Naruto, he was already pinned down in the main storage area of the warehouse. Naruto had turned over a vending machine and laid it on its side, hiding behind it. Are you real or a clone? Another soldier asked. Naruto clone said, real me is going around while I'm a distraction. It took the MP5K off its back and started firing back over the machine's cover. DJI just nodded, not expecting much more from the clone than that. Naruto always made sure that his clones only told them what he thought they needed to know quickly about his plans. They knew they were meant to draw attention to themselves while Naruto looked for the target or did whatever he was doing at the time. And Wes started firing at the enemy group. Naruto the real was stuck to the darkened ceiling of the roof and crawling on it while his clone turned the fire away from them. When they saw that DJ, even though Wes was in a good position to help his clone, Naruto knew he couldn't leave them alone. Naruto crept right up on top of where the enemy was hiding behind shelves full of boxes and other things and shooting through the gaps. He then pulled out a grenade and threw it on top of them before continuing to crawl. He heard DJ after the explosion stopped the gunfire. Tell them to move up. Naruto walked up to the windows near the top of the building that let light in. He turned his head to look through them and quietly growled at what he saw. An armed guard leading a man in a tracksuit and a ballistic vest to a car. When he saw gunfire from the other soldiers who were supposed to go around before they went into the warehouse, he almost yelled with joy, "Outside! Bayani's almost to a car to get out of here." DJ Naruto stepped away from his clone and kicked out one of the higher windows while Wes and Naruto ran to find a way out. As he stabbed a kunai into the outside wall, he wrapped a thin metal wire around the weapon's ring, then dropped to the ground and pulled it off the wall to keep for later use. Two members of his squad who were supposed to protect those getting them wheels to leave were in the middle of a shootout from a balcony, and he could see that the enemy was moving closer to their own vehicle that they were using to escape. He decided that this was the perfect time to finish things off while they weren't looking at him. Before running full speed at the vehicle the target was trying to get away, Naruto pulled some throwing knives out of the sleeve around his right arm. He then threw them at the enemy and hit two of the three men in the neck with them. Because they didn't see him coming until he was already there, he killed the last man with the kunai he was holding. Naruto had to hide behind a nearby forklift when their target, who had already opened the door to his escape car and was firing through the open window at the young blonde, started firing automatic weapons at him. "I fucking hate guns," Naruto yelled over the sound of the bullets hitting his cover. "You've got to reload sometime, asshole." The shooting stopped, and Naruto let out a sigh of relief until the sound of an engine started. "Uzumaki, move." When Naruto heard his boss yell a warning, he jumped out from behind the forklift just in time to avoid being hit by Bayani's car as he tried to get away. When Naruto got back up and ran at the passenger side of the car, he said, "You missed? Rasengan, spiraling sphere." He then formed his special attack in his left hand and slammed it into the side of the car, punching a huge spiral dent in the door that sent it flying 10 feet away as if it had been hit by another car coming the other way. It turned over and over 3 times before landing on its roof. What Naruto saw was the rest of his team quickly getting to the wrecked car and capturing their target, Bayani. "Target secured, sir," one of the other soldiers told DJ as 2 more cars pulled up. The 2 soldiers who were supposed to do that took them. After being pulled from the wrecked car, Bayani was quickly bound by some of Naruto's metal wire and thrown into the backseat of one of the cars. The squad then filled both cars, front and back, and spread out as the enemies who were still alive tried to chase them through the warehouse grounds on foot with their guns. DJ was in the lead car. I was riding shotgun, Naruto was in the back with Bayani tied up, and I was going in and out of consciousness between the blonde soldier and Wes. Wes let out a sigh and looked at the bloody Bayani. "So we're done, right?" DJ said, "For now." He smiled and kept looking over his shoulder to make sure they weren't being chased. They weren't. He then said, "I wonder if we'll get some time off after this one." The driver let out a laugh. "You know they're just going to have us back stomping through the remote parts of the jungle again until we find something else to fight. I think I'd rather be in Afghanistan right now." "Not you either. The Philippines aren't that bad," they said. "Am I the only one of us who actually likes nature?" Naruto asked in shock. "See? He hates the desert so much it hurts him just thinking about it, just like me." Hearing the others laugh made Naruto feel better, and he leaned back in his chair. He loved his job a lot. What Naruto loves to eat, omake. 1999, 2 months after Naruto arrived, Naruto was 13 years old. Naruto sat at the kitchen table with his head down, sore from another day of being beaten up by Master Miller as he tried to fix Naruto's hand-to-hand style, which was thought to be the easiest thing to teach a kid like Naruto. "So hungry," Naruto muttered, feeling tired. This showed how hard he had worked that day. It took a lot to wear him down this way. Catherine apologized to Naruto as she shook her head and walked out of the pantry. We don't go grocery shopping until tomorrow, and there isn't anything good in there that's easy for me to make you. You might as well wait for Dad to come in from feeding the huskies to cook. Naruto's presence made more things get used and eaten. Before Miller told him he wouldn't be fed if he didn't eat them, the kid would eat almost anything except vegetables. It's okay. Naruto tried to reassure her, but his stomach made a noise that made him groan. I can go another hour or two without eating anything, Dadbeo, he said. She frowned and went back into the pantry to see if there was anything that would keep Naruto busy for now. You did it again, she said in a helpful way. You put that thing you say sometimes at the end of your sentence. What does it mean? Naruto slightly raised his head when he heard Catherine looking through the pantry. It means his stomach let out another angry grumble that made him lose energy. Never mind. I can't even think about that right now. When Catherine came out of the pantry carrying as many small boxes as she could, Naruto heard her say, "Well, I found these crackers." She dropped a box of saltines on the table, and Naruto tore into them like a jackal. But they're old and probably really stale, Catherine said with a laugh as she watched Naruto chew on some of them. What else do you have? Naruto asked as he smacked his lips together to get rid of the bad taste. Catherine began to put boxes on the table to show him what she had found. Dried tomato chips? He asked. With his tongue out and his hand raised in a thumbs down sign, Naruto said, "Blech, gross." She said, "Easter chocolates." Naruto listened with interest. From 2 years ago, I think. Yuga next. We've got these cornflakes here. There's no milk though, that's gross. Catherine agreed and threw away the cornflakes before putting her last box on the table. Naruto looked at the box as if she had just thrown a roll of $20 bills on the table. Then he turned around and glared at her. What? In front of a box of chicken-flavored instant ramen noodles, he asked her, "Why didn't you show me this first?" She replied, "I didn't even know they had this." He hadn't been to any towns, let alone supermarkets, to look for ramen. That little addiction was just something he thought he would have to give up. When Naruto got up to find a bowl, Catherine pouted and said, "Those have been in the back of the pantry for like a year. You're not really going to eat that, are you?" Naruto replied, "Really? Aren't you supposed to have some common sense? You're older than me." Catherine didn't like instant ramen. It sat in the back of the pantry because she didn't like it when she bought it. He was about to eat some old instant ramen. The boy was really strange. That piece of information might have stopped Naruto if he hadn't been so hungry from not eating since he woke up at 3:30 in the morning. Besides being very hungry and having worked hard all day, the food that was dropped in front of him was something he had not had in a long time and really liked, so he didn't care what anyone else thought. As he took out a package and got ready to make it, he let out a sigh after reading the short directions on the box. Even in this world, making ramen took at least 3 minutes.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.